title of my message today is A Jar of M&Ms. A jar of M&Ms. How many of you M&M fans? Where are you at? Okay. Some of you are confused because you're like, the rapper? Or are we talking about? Either way, whatever. I'm just trying to get a cheer from you. So I love M&Ms. They are a weakness, a kryptonite of mine. I can get down with all different forms of M&Ms. I like the regular, okay? I like the peanut M&Ms. Give me some peanut butter M&Ms. In fact, those last two are great because I have kids allergic to peanuts, so they're all mine. It's beautiful. Sorry. Oh, we got the peanut ones again. Oh, why? Movie night's going to be fun for Dad. So we have this jar of, mason jar of M&Ms at our house. And this is what it looks like. And like, I didn't even know we had this for the longest time. I didn't even know that it existed. And I found it one evening. This thing happens to me, and maybe I'm the only one on the planet, where after I put my kids to bed and I watch something, my wife and I are kind of laying in bed, we're watching something, I'm like, I'm hungry. I need something to eat right now. I need something sweet. And so I went and I was like, looking for a healthy something to eat. And I'm like, I could eat this strawberry, and then I'm looking through it, and I see this jar of M&Ms. I didn't even know we had it, and I was like, that is what I need. That's what I need in my life right now to go with this show that we're watching. And so I just take a few off the top. I'm just like, I just want a couple. I'm gonna be good and responsible. Just a handful. It's not even a full handful. It's a baby handful. Okay. Now you shouldn't give babies these though, because they're a choking hazard. But it's a tiny handful. And so I take them back to our room, and I'm watching the show, and I'm eating these M&Ms just one at a time. I'm savoring them. They're delicious. They're delectable. They're making my heart happy. Okay. And then I get to, we're like halfway through the show. I don't know if you do this, but you can eat twice or 4 times or 10 times as much as something while you're watching something than when you're not. Because you're like, where did it go? Somebody took it, right? And my wife is like, no, you literally ate all of that just now. And so I get to the place where I've eaten the M&Ms, and then I've got the candy, the colored rings, which, man, when you're holding an M&M and it melts slightly, and then you get that meltiness, that's amazing, right? That's what heaven's going to be like, just a bunch of melted M&Ms that we're swimming in. So so then I'm like, you know what? I just want just a couple more. And so I go back in the kitchen, I go to the pantry, I get just a couple more M&Ms, and I go back and I eat those. I eat those a little bit quicker than the first batch, but they were good, and I was enjoying it. And then I was just I was thirsty, so I'm gonna go back in and I get a bottle of water. I'm like, well, I'm here, I'm just gonna grab just a couple more M&Ms. And so I grab a couple more M&Ms, and I go back, and I'm laying there, I'm drinking the water, eating the M&Ms, and then the movie got, the show we're watching got kind of sad, and I was like, man, I can't deal with these emotions. And I go back in, and I got just a few more M&Ms off. I can feel the judgment, but you've been there, right? And I get a few more M&Ms, and so I'm eating those M&Ms, and as I'm eating, this is the 4th or 5th batch, I'm just like, oh man, these are good, and they taste good, but I'm starting not to feel good. And I'm starting to feel a little sick, I've eaten too many of these. And I think what would remedy it is maybe just eating a few more. I think if I just get some more, then maybe that would help, just to maybe it just needs more chocolate to pool in the stomach, and then that will help offset. And so I go get some more, and those were not enjoyable. They tasted good, but made me feel very sick. And I'm like, this is out of control. I don't like this, but I'm just going to finish the ones in my hand. And so I ate those. I only did this 17 times or so. I only went back and forth, and I finally get it to where it's it's the full mason jar has got 5 M&Ms in it. I mean, it's there's nothing in there. And then it occurred to me, I'm like, I don't even know what these are for. This is probably someone was planning to do something, and I'm like, not my problem. And so I go to bed, and the next morning I'm woken up by my middle child, my oldest son, and I just hear him yelling through the house, "Who ate the M&Ms?" He's so angry. And he comes in, he pushes open my door. He's holding the jar above his head. Angry, just walking around. "Who did it?" And then he looks at the bed and he goes, "It was you." And I'm like half asleep. I don't even know what's going on. He comes over. The thing is like, there's just a few rattling around in the bottom, which makes it funny, but I can't laugh because he's so mad. And then he just drops it on my chest, and I'm like, okay, and he's just like, he was like, "I know it was you. You're the only one who would have done it." And I'm like, we're placing blame at this point. Like, it's neither here nor there. He's like, "Those are special M&Ms. Those are pancake M&Ms. Those go in the pancakes that Mom makes me in the morning. Those are special. She put them in the jar for the pancake M&Ms, and they're only for the people eating pancakes." He was very adamant about it. And it makes sense because my wife makes these pancakes that are like healthy pancakes with like chia seeds and like also like spinach and all sorts of things that are disgusting. And she puts it in a pancake, but if you put the M&Ms in there, it like balances it out. It makes it like tolerable. And my kids are now addicted to these healthy pancakes with the M&Ms. And he's looking at the 4 people that are gonna eat pancakes, the 4 M&Ms. He's like, "This is not gonna do. This will not stand." Okay. And he's frustrated. And he's just like, and I'm like, I did eat the M&Ms. It was more than I thought I was gonna eat. And like my hand's hanging off the bed. You can see like the color staining on my hand. He's just looking at me in disgust. He's looking at my hand. He starts to walk out, and he gets to the door. And as he's about ready to go out the door, he turns around and goes, "I can't believe you did that. You didn't have to do it." He just stared at me for the longest time, like a creepy 8-year-old stare of judgment. And then he goes, and then he says, "Why would you do something like that? You're already a little bit fat." And then he ran out the room. And I was like, okay, come on. Now it's getting cheap shot. Like, we don't need to get into that. And my wife's like, "You are a little bit fat. No, she didn't say that. But she was thinking, I could tell with her eyes, the way she was looking at me. And I tell you this because I think like we all find ourselves in these moments, and maybe for you where you kind of like overdid it a little bit. Like there's something you kind of wanted and it was interesting, and you had access to it and you could get it, and so you got it, and then you got a little bit more, and then you got a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more, and you just couldn't stop yourself, and it was enjoyable, and then it wasn't, but you just kind of kept going, right? You just kept doing the thing that started off great and ended up being not maybe as great, and then it ended up having some consequences. And we have a word for this in our culture. It's called overindulging, right? Overindulging. And I think the definition to this word is particularly funny, to me at least. To overindulge is to pursue something delightful to the point that it becomes destructive, right? That, like, just reading those words it sounds way worse than how good it feels to do that. You know what I mean? Like, it seems better at the time. And what does this actually mean? It means that there's a threshold, right? That everything has a threshold. That there's a point in which a good thing crosses a line and becomes a bad thing. And this happens with everything. And you've been in this moment before. You have been here. Like, sometimes we're aware that this is happening. We're aware we're beginning to cross the threshold. As we're crossing it, we're aware, we're self-aware of it while it's happening, right? We're like, this is good. This is so good. I love this. This is awesome. This is great. It's not as great. It's starting to get not good. It's starting to go downhill. It's starting to go the other way right now. It's starting to it's bordering on unpleasant, but I'm going to push through. I'm going to keep going and just do a little bit more. It's starting to hurt. I'm starting to feel sick. I'm starting to feel a little bit, just a little bit more, just a few more. Just going to keep going. I'm just like, are you guys getting a stabbing pain in your clavicle? It feels like something is like a knife or an object is in there that ought not be, but it's like the M&M severed off and has formed a spear point and got into a weird place through the bloodstream. I don't know. It's making me feel horrible. I blacked out. What happened? What's going on right now? This is getting dangerous, which is why I'm going to limit myself to only 4 or 5, 6. You know what? I might get a second win. I'm not going to put a number on it. I'm just going to try and be better, okay? We all do this, right? We do this thing, and in our culture, we do this thing to a disproportionate degree. I wonder if you've ever, regretted something that you're only about to do. Like, you haven't even done it yet, and you're just already like, this is a bad idea. This is not going to end. This is horrible. well, here we go, right? And the person that's with you is like, you don't have to do this. And you're like, I already thought of it. It's too late. I found the jar. I'm going to eat all these and die. Like, this is the trajectory we're on, right? Why do we do this, right? And why in our culture do this? And not just with food, not just with M&Ms. Why are we people that tend to overindulge in everything, that can't have enough of anything that we like or love? I think partially because we live in a culture that believes if a little is good, then a lot is better, right? I don't even need to tell you this. This is like the unwritten. Some of you are like, I thought that was in the Constitution, right? Like this is such a part of like a fabric of our society that we just instinctively like, yeah, that's the way that we assume life works. And so what happens is we acquire and we gather and we hoard and we save and we stack up and we show off. And we do it at such a rate that we often end up pushing past the threshold from delightful into destructive. And sometimes we do it without even noticing. Sometimes we keep going even though it's not working anymore. And we just can't stop. And part of the reason we can't stop is because, like, along the way we stumble on to something else our culture believes, which is that, like, what you have is who you are. So even though everything I've got and everything I'm doing and everything I'm experiencing is not really making me feel the way I want to feel, like I can't let it go because it's a part of who I am. This is me. I don't know the difference between like my stuff and what I've gotten and what I've acquired, like, and who I am. Like, I'm the person who wears these clothes and goes to these places and drives that car and like is seen ordering that expensive bottle of wine. Like, I'm the person who Facebooks these kinds of vacations and lives in that neighborhood, right? Like, that's who I am. And so if what you have is who you are, and if a little is good but a lot is so much better, if those things are true, then what this tells me is like I got to hold on to what I've got. And the thought of losing it makes me really nervous. And so we insulate and we protect the things that we have, and it's this never-ending process that fills us with fear and worry and jealousy and anxiety and insecurity and anger and exhaustion, all of which lead us away from what we want in life, which is peace and joy. The impulse to overindulge leads us on this path past delight to destruction. And now that you're all encouraged, let's just close in prayer and just ask the Lord to come soon. Right? So here's the thing. If all of this sounds a little extreme, and it does, and it should, and it is, like, I just want you to listen to the story that Jesus tells about the tendency to overindulge, right? And so, the number of people who have access to overindulge in his culture is so much smaller, right? Because he lives in a different time and a place, but it's still rampant, and regardless of how much you have, you can buy into these concepts, right? Whether or not you have access. But like, we have a ton of access, these people don't. But Jesus tells this story about the dangers of living in an overindulgent culture, and I just want you to listen to what he says. I think if you think what I said is extreme, just listen to this. This is Luke chapter 12, verse 16. I'm going to read out of the Message. It says, this is Jesus talking. He says, a farm of a certain rich man produced a terrific crop. And he said to himself, what can I do? My barn isn't even big enough for this harvest. And then he said, here's what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones. And then I'll gather all my grain and goods. And I'll say to myself, self. That's in the Bible, you guys. This is hilarious. Self, you've done well. You got it made and now you can retire. Take it easy and have the time of your life. This is the best part. Verse 20, just then God showed up and said, fool, tonight you die. If this is not your favorite verse in the Bible, what are you doing with your life, okay? God shows up. You know, in the story, people are like, oh, God's here. This is going to be great. Instead, he just channels Mr. T. He's like, fool, tonight you die. And then your barn full of goods, who gets it? And then Jesus ends this way. He says, that's what happens when you fill your barn with self and not with God. And everyone in the room was like, ugh. That's bleak, right? But like, here's the fortunate piece. Jesus gives us another parable to illustrate what it looks like to live life from a different view of resources. And we have to actually work at living life from a different perspective when it comes to the things that we have and have access to, because we tend to imitate what we're immersed in, right? And we are surrounded by a culture that is obsessed with overindulgence, right? And so Jesus tells a story to say, like, here's what it might look like to live from a different paradigm. And it's a famous story, and I want to read it and draw out some things that maybe you've not seen before. It's found in the book of Luke, again, 2 chapters earlier, Luke chapter 10, and we're going to start in verse 30. And it's a story that's often known as the Good Samaritan. I'm going to read a section of it, and man, there's so much depth in this small parable and all the teachings of Jesus. In fact, in Scripture, there's so much going on that you could teach on the same thing over and over again. In fact, 2 Marches ago, we did a whole series just on the Good Samaritan and taught 4 completely different sermons about different things about this, and I didn't touch what I'm about to talk about today. But this is what this says. It says in the Message, it says, there was once a man traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho, and on the way he was attacked by robbers, and they took his clothes, beat him up, and went off, leaving him half dead. Luckily, a priest was on his way down the same road, but when he saw him, he angled across the other side, like went out of his way to avoid him. Then a Levite, a religious man, showed up, and he also avoided the injured man. And here's the first thing that I want you to realize that I think Jesus is trying to get us to wake up to. The things we do result from our worldview. Okay, the things we do result from our worldview. If you watch someone's actions over time, you can get a sense of the way they see the world. And so what do these actions tell us about the way that these two people, these two characters see the world? It tells us, first and foremost, that they're operating from a scarcity mindset. And a scarcity mindset views the world through certain filters. And this is what a scarcity mindset says. It says, like, I've only got so much, and if I give some to you, there won't be enough for me. Okay, like, because things are scarce, right? I've only got so much, and this is not just about money, right? This is about, I've only got so much time. I've only got so much energy. I've only got so many skills. I've only got so much money, right? And so, like, and if I give some to you, then there's not gonna be enough for me, so I can't give to you. I can't be generous. I can't help you. I can't stop and be a part of the thing that you're doing. The second thing that scarcity mentality says is that you got yourself into that situation, so you should get yourself out. Right? Which both of these people have, right? They're walking along and they're just like, yeah, I don't know how you got to where you are. Like, you did something though. I don't know if somebody gave you a warning that you ignored, or like, why are you traveling by yourself if you're not like heeding to wisdom? I don't know what you did, but like, you had a role to play and you got yourself in. You're going to have to get yourself, I don't want to, it's not my problem. I'm not getting involved. It's your issue, right? And the third thing it tells us is, why would I help you if there's nothing in it for me? In fact, for these two people, the priest and the Levite, this religious man, like, it's actually going to hinder them in many ways, right? Because they're going to become, they touch this guy who's beaten, especially if he's dead, they're going to become ceremonially unclean, which means they can't interact in the temple, they can't participate in religious rites, they can't be around other religious people, their status takes a hit. People make assumptions about who they are, right? And they're not heralded as, like, you know, who they once were. And so, like, if they have a goal to be, like, known and admired, if they live in a culture in which more is always better, if they happen to live in a culture that tells them that, you know, like, what I have is who I am, like my status and what people think about me and the things that I've acquired and the experiences that I'm able to provide myself, if I help you, then that stuff goes away, and then who am I? But this isn't the end of the story, okay? Because it's not called the bad priest and Levite, right? It's called the Good Samaritan. So there's more of it. And this is what it says. It says, a Samaritan traveling the road came on him, this guy who was beaten, and when he saw the man's condition, his heart went out to him. And he gave him first aid, disinfected and bandaged his wounds. He lifted him onto his donkey, led him to an inn, and made him comfortable. So here's what's crazy. The circumstance he stumbles on are the exact same as the other two guys, but he interprets them differently because he sees life through a completely different lens. His actions are reflecting a different worldview. Well, what is it? The priests and the Levite believe that, like, I've only got so much, and if I give some to you, there won't be enough for me. But the Samaritan, he has a worldview not of scarcity, but of sufficiency. And it says very different things. It says that, like, if I do what's right with what I've got, God will entrust me with more. If I do what is right with what I've got, God will entrust me with more. The priest and the Levite believe, like, you got yourself into this situation, you should get yourself out. But the Samaritan believes that we're all a byproduct of our choices and our circumstances, right? And so regardless of why things got this bad, I'm called to help make them better. Because I serve a sufficient God who's given me a purpose on this planet. The priest and the Levite believe, like, why would I help you if there's nothing in it for me? But the Samaritan believes, God has been good to me, and so I'm going to be good to you. Because a big part of my existence is reflecting my Maker, who is all sufficient, who has more than enough grace to go around. Now, I know some of you are thinking, like, yeah, okay, but, like, this guy, the Samaritan, he's probably rich, and had, like, a ton of disposable income, and so, like, probably didn't affect him to just, like, do and give and whatever, and it's like, that would be an assumption. That's not necessarily true, and we don't know that. But the point of the story isn't how much he has, it's what he does with what he has. And really, it's designed to get us to ask a very important question, and it's this: what do I do with what I have? And what does that say about what I believe? And I want you to begin to ask yourself this question today. Like, what do I do with what I have? And what does that say about what I believe? Now, the first thing we want to do is talk about all the things we don't have. Right? But, like, you have something. You don't have as much as many people, and you don't have as little as many, many more. Okay? But, like, what do you have? And what do you do with what you have? And what does that say about what you really believe? Why is this important? Because money is like water. Money's like water, and when it flows to my values, it sets me free, but when I dam it up, it damages me. And this is not just about money, it's about resources. You could say time is like water. When it flows to my values, it sets me free. But when I dam it up, it damages me. My energy is like water. And when it flows to my values, it sets me free. But when I dam it up, it damages me. My skill set is like water. When I allow it and direct it to flow to my values, it sets me free. But when I dam it up, it damages me. Picture a stream, like a bubbling brook that's flowing down from the mountains. Like, when it flows from one place to another, everything it touches along the way is strengthened, cleansed, and clarified. That's the way a functional stream works. Like, whatever the water's directed at grows and develops. On the other hand, like, if the flow gets dammed up and there's nothing coming out, there's nowhere for it to go, it's not going to anything good, like, man, water begins to sit and stagnate and turn toxic and poison, and it drowns certain things while starving out other things that need its flow. It does damage. You ever come across like a horde of stagnant water? It is the most vile thing you will ever smell in your life. It is horrible, okay? JP and I came into the office. This was like yesterday, right? It feels like so long ago because I think the smell of this water burnt some brain cells, and I can't remember what day it was, right? Like, upstairs there was like there was a clog in the sink in our office, and like some water had backed up. And the water that backed up was originally fine, but it sat there for so long, it started to stagnate and turn, and it was just sitting there for like a couple days when our staff had the day off. And then we came in, and it was like walking up the stairs, and mid-conversation, like, oh, whoa! It felt like something slapped you in the face, and you're like, what? I think a raccoon died somewhere, like, I don't know what's going on. And dead raccoons have a very specific smell, just so you know. And we were trying to figure it out. It was just water. It was just like stagnant, standing water that, like, had begun to do damage to like the air and the things around it. Like I drained the water, and of course, like there was this ring around the sink. It was like all gross, and we were like, okay, that's not pleasant. And here's what's crazy. You do that to your soul. You do that to your soul when you hoard your money, time, energy, and skill. You see, fulfillment is found in directing the flow of what we have toward our highest ideals and the wholeness of others. Fulfillment is found in directing the flow of what we have, our money, time, energy, and skills, toward our highest ideals and the wholeness of others. And Jesus reiterates this idea again and again and again and again. Matthew chapter 6, verse 19, Jesus says this. He says, "Do not store up for yourself treasures on earth where moths and vermin," he says the word vermin. How great is that? Like a raccoon, for instance, okay? "Destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Then he says this, "The eye is the lamp of the body, and if your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be filled with light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. You cannot serve both God and money." I can sense some of you are getting lost. You're like, wait, it was about money. And then he was just like treasure, and then vermin, and then heaven, and then eyes of light. And what are we talking about, right? What's going on? And then he goes back to like, you can't serve God and money. What is Jesus saying? This is what Jesus is saying through this. He's saying like, I get it. Your culture is telling you that if a little is good, a lot is better. And like what you have is who you are. But like, here's what you need to know about stuff, about treasure, about things you can acquire. It doesn't last, and neither will you. So you can use what you have to build your temporary kingdom, or you can use it to build God's eternal kingdom. But whatever you give your time, money, energy, and skill to, that is what you become emotionally attached to. That's what Jesus means when he says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. He's saying like, man, if you are investing, whether you intend to or not, your money, your time, your energy, and your skills into something, you will, whether you want to or not, whether you like that stuff or not, whether that's what you truly wish you valued or not, you will become emotionally attached to it. And what Jesus is trying to tell these people is the same thing he's trying to tell us. Some of us are realizing we are emotionally attached to things that don't matter, because we have given so much of ourselves and our resources to them, and they've left us empty. And it started, man, when we started going after it, it started off so delightful. And then it like crossed the line. We moved over the threshold, and it started becoming destructive. Right in the middle, Jesus quotes this saying from his day that is lost on us because we don't leverage this idea or this metaphor that was just kind of a turn of phrase in their culture. He uses this idea that like your eyes or the way you see the world steers what you do with your body, your actions. In other words, like the things we do result from our worldview. And there is a light and a dark way to look at life. The word that's translated here as healthy, right? This idea of having your eyes being healthy is translated from a Hebrew word that means generous. Like if you see the world through a generous or like a sufficiency view, and the word that's translated as unhealthy is the Hebrew word for stingy, which is telling us that some people see the universe through a lens of scarcity, and it drives them to ignore other people and hoard resources and live for themselves. And others see the universe through a lens of sufficiency, and it compels them to be generous with all they have and all they are. And one is a way that leads you to realize I'm in service of God to make the world a better place. And the other leads us to really wake up one day and realize I'm a slave to money. And I'm only serving myself. And it's empty. Here's another way to say it. Those who give most freely live most fully. Those who give most freely live most fully. And the Good Samaritan clearly believes this, which is why he like continually goes above and beyond. This is what happens the next day. Luke chapter 10, verse 35, continue on the same Good Samaritan story. It says, in the morning, he took out 2 silver coins, and he gave them to the innkeeper, saying, take good care of him. If it costs any more, put it on my bill, and I'll pay you on my way back. So he's already given. He's already given so much of his time and so much of his energy and so much of his skill set and so much of his money, but he continues to give more. Why? Because he believes if I do what's right with what I've got, God will entrust me with more. He believes that, like, I need to have compassion on this person, this need that I've woken up to, because we're all a product of our choices and circumstances. Regardless of why things got this bad for him, I'm called to help make them better. Like, God's been so good to me, and so I'm going to be good to you. And we like to believe that we also believe these things, but we don't always behave accordingly. And here's what's real. How you behave is what you believe. How you behave is what you believe. And if you claim to believe something that is not represented in the way that you leverage or use or invest your time, money, energy, and skill set, you don't believe it. You wish you did. So which set of values are your spending habits supporting? Like those of the priest and the Levite, or those of the Good Samaritan? I know some of you are thinking like, well, I'm not a hoarder, so my money flows right through me. Like, I can't even stop it. Sometimes I don't even get it, and it's just already gone. Like, I mean, it's just, whoo! It's just, man, it's out there. It's a stream. It's a fast stream, okay? It is taking people down river. I mean, like, it is. And here's the thing I would say, like, that, okay, good. So there's a flow going on. That's great. It prevents you from, stagnating. But what is it flowing to? And are those the things that you most value? You ever think back on the course of a week, and you're like looking at your schedule, like how you spent your time, and you think like, did I do anything that mattered? You ever do this? You ever get, at the end of the month, you ever get like your bank statement or your credit card bill, and you just like look down at the charges, and you're like, why did I spend that? Why did I do that? Why did I pay for that? I don't even care about these things. I don't even remember that experience. What was that for? It's meaningless. Why did I direct the flow in that direction? You ever look at the things that you are good at? Like the thing, like you're not bragging. You're just like, I'm good at this. Like, I've got a gift for this. Like, I know how to do this well. It's something that like I've developed. Some of it's God-given. Some of it's something that I've leaned into and figured out how to make better. And like, you look at what you're aiming those skills at. You ever look at the things that you're directing what you're best at towards, and you're like, is it making the world better, or is it just, what is it doing? You ever completely exhaust yourself doing something, like really wear yourself out trying to get something done, and then when it's done, you're just like, what was the point of that? Like, did that do anything good for the world or anything? Like, why did I had to get it done. We got to do it. We got to get it. And I like just burnt myself. I burnt the candle at both ends, and I got done, and I'm just like, what was that for? I don't even know why is that making anything good? And here's what I would tell you. Burnout isn't a byproduct of busyness. It's a consequence of living disconnected from your deepest values. We think we're burnout because we're busy. But here, the thing I got to tell you is this. We don't call someone joyfully pursuing their deepest values burnout. We don't call that. You know what we call that? Finding yourself. We call that fulfilling your calling. When we feel burnout, it's because we are living disconnected from our deepest values. And we're just like, just a few more. This isn't even working. Just keep going. Just keep doing it. It's actually going the other way. It's actually making it worse. Maybe if I just do more of the thing that's making it worse, maybe that'll make it better. It doesn't make sense, but I'm already this deep, so just keep going. It's not working. And some of us, we're like, that's great. I don't even know what are my deepest values. I thought I knew, but you're saying like how you behave is what you believe. And so what do I believe? Like, what am I demonstrating that I actually care about? And in order to know how to get to where you want to go, you have to figure out where you are. And in order to figure out where you are, if you want a clear picture of your priorities, look at your credit card statement and your calendar, because it's all there. Like, if you look at a month of what you spent your money on and what you spent your time, energy, and skill set on, and those two things are found in your bank statement or your credit card statement and your calendar, you will look at the trends that will tell you what you really value. Because whatever you allocate your time, money, energy, and skill to is what your life winds up being about. And some of us don't want to look because we're afraid of what we might find. But here's the thing, you already know. You already know. You already know if you're stagnant. You already know if your soul is sick. You already know if you're burnt out. You already know if you feel like your life is meaningless. You already know if you look at all you've gotten and what you've done with it and you're like, what did it do for anyone? You already know. You're in denial. Because for a lot of us, we don't know how to stop. But here is the good news. If you don't like the way you are leveraging your time and money, and you don't like what it's saying about you, you can change. You can become more open-handed. You can redirect resources away from surface things towards significant things. Like, you can move from grabbing all you can just for you to leveraging everything God has given you to create a rich and satisfying future for those around you. How would you do that? I think the two simplest ways that we funnel our resources, and our basic resources are money or our capital, right? And then what I would say are, our human resources, so our time, energy, and skill set. And if you want your money to do something that matters, give. Give to things that matter. Decide, you know what? These things are great. They're delightful. But if I overindulge in them, they become destructive. And you know what? That doesn't deserve as big a piece of the pie of what I have as I'm giving it. And you know what I want to do? I want to give to things that are making the world better. I want to give to things that are pointing people to who God is. I want to give to things that are megaphoning that God is sufficient and His grace is enough and He loves everyone. I want to give to things that are doing that. This is part of the reason why I don't ever feel guilty about asking people to give to our church, because I believe in what we're doing. I believe that we are making the world a better place. And if you don't believe that, don't give here. But why are you going here? That was what I would ask, right? If you don't believe that this place is making the world a better place, why would you come every week? That doesn't make any sense to me. I would stop coming. I would go somewhere else, okay? But if you really think that this is I think you should give here. I think you should invest your tithe and your offerings here, because not only is your giving making a difference to the people that come here and are in this community, but it ripples out into the many campuses we have all around. It ripples out into our strategic partners. It ripples out into people coming to faith, to people being fed, to people being clothed, to people being taken care of and shown love and grace and mercy and sufficiency of the Savior. I got to tell you, I never feel regretful about the money I give to this church. I'm never oh man, what a waste. Jeez. Can't believe we gave that much to the church. Stupid kids building. What's that going to do? Right? No, I never feel that way. I'm always just that's going to be, people are going to grow up knowing who Jesus is because I gave my money to that. People are going to come into this facility and know who Jesus is because I give to this on a consistent basis. But then you have your human resources, right? You have your time, your energy, your skill set. And what I would say to do with that is to serve. Serve into something that's making the world a better place. And this is why I never feel guilty about asking people to get involved here, because I think we are making this city and the world a better place. And then if you invest your time here, you get to be a part of that. I don't regret the time that I invest in helping someone's eyes open up to who Jesus is and how much he loves them and how their life can be better when they wake up to that reality. I don't feel bad about that time invested. There are a lot of ways I waste my time that afterwards I'm like, you know what? I can't believe I watched 3 seasons of that. I just wanted to know what happened. I thought it was going to get better over time. It did not. It was not a great payoff. And this is part of the reason why we slow down this weekend on our Volunteer Appreciation Sunday, and why we have created a space with gifts and balloons and cupcakes, some of which with M&Ms on top, you're welcome, and like some gifts for you, because man, when you invest in this church, it makes a big difference. And just because it's meaningful to your life, and here's what I really believe. I think you serving and volunteering is a bigger benefit to you than it is to me. Because it's investing your life into something that ultimately will matter when you are gone. It's storing up treasures in heaven. It's doing something that you won't regret because it's way bigger than you. It's making the world into the place that God envisions it to be. But just because it's a benefit to you doesn't mean I don't want to say thank you. Doesn't mean my staff and team don't want to say we cannot do it without you. And all of the dreams and visions we have for this city and this place, you make them come true when you show up and serve. I love getting to talk to our volunteers who I always ask people what do you do around here? And they'll tell me. And then I'm like, why do you like it? And almost everybody gets choked up a little bit. Why? Why is that? Because it means something. Because it's making something of your life. Because it's contributing something to the world. And so much of us are bordering on burnout because we are so disconnected from our values. And when we give and serve into the kingdom of God, it reconnects us with what we're made for. You know what's better than eating M&Ms alone in your room by yourself? And some of you are like, what is better? Please riddle me this. I don't know that I could answer. It's great, right? It's delightful, but there is a point in which it becomes depressing, right? It becomes destructive. You know what's better than eating M&Ms by yourself in your room? Putting them in pancakes that bring smiles to everyone at the table. It's so much better. It's the same M&Ms. It's the same jar. It's the same number. And you have some. You have a jar of M&Ms in your own life. What are you doing with them? Because M&Ms are not evil. I just wanted to go on the record. M&Ms are not evil. Money is not evil. Those things are delightful. But if you buy into the myth that if you hoard them all, everything you've got to yourself, it will push past delightful to destructive. And that is true of money, it's true of energy, it's true of time, it's true of skill. What are you doing with yours? Are you expanding others' experience of the sufficiency of God? Or are you overindulging to the point of making yourself sick? Because the truth of indulgence has been and always will be that you can gain the whole world and lose your soul. That you can stack up all you could ever want and it not be enough. And what I want to pray into your life today is that you lean in to using everything that God has given you to create the perfect place for imperfect people everywhere you find yourself. And I want to challenge you to start here. Would you bow your heads across this room? Father, I'm grateful for all that you have given us. We really are blessed. We live in a time and a place and a country in which we really have access to so much. Like we have the ability, all of us in this room, all of us listening to this podcast, we have the ability to overindulge if we want to in many different ways, even though we don't even have close to as much as some others. But God, I just pray that you would enable us to live from a worldview of sufficiency, not scarcity. And God, that we would see the world with light in our eyes. God, that when we come across the same circumstances or situation as someone else, that we lean in, that we light up, that we have this sense that this is my opportunity to give and serve and love and reflect my Maker. This is my moment to be who I am. God, I pray that you would give us the grace to rebel against our culture, and God, to reflect the culture of heaven. And God, that everywhere we go, it would spread. God, may we give and serve increasingly to things that really matter. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Adam.